Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Jazz Explorations, and I have been looking forward to this particular one for weeks now, not only because of who we have on deck today to be our special guest, but because this man has been in my life for quite a bit of a time now. We've been friends since the early 90s. I met him when I was attending Cal Arts in Los Angeles, and later was asked to join the band Black Note with this incredible musician, and was just completely honored to be a huge part of the Young Lions movement in the early 90s that included people like Joshua Redman, Roy Hargrove, Christian Pride, Antonio Hart, Joshua Redman, just to name a few. And Black Note, the group Black Note that I was in with Willie Jones, we were right there in the front line with these incredible musicians representing the music. Willie Jones III, who's our special guest today, is a huge inspiration and role model for me. He does it all. He's an incredible, not only drummer, but unbelievable leader, musician, writer, composer. He has his own record label, his own independent record label called WJ3 Records. And without further ado, today's guest, Mr. Willie Jones III. Welcome, Willie.
Hey, Gilbert, thank you so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Long time coming, being able to chop it up with you, and I'm very proud of you, everything that you've accomplished, and I could say you've also been an inspiration to me.
Oh.
So I'm glad to be here, man.
Thank you. Well, I know a lot of our students have been looking forward to this as well. So, and I know that you're going to have some great advice for them. But I'll just turn it over to you and let you get started, and I'll chime in every now and then there to ask you questions as they come up.
Sounds good. So I guess I'll start by giving a little background. My background, where I come from and how I got started. I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised in LA. And I come from a musical family background. My father was a jazz musician, Willie Jones. He was a piano player. And so in LA, growing up, I was able to see firsthand all the local jazz musicians. Piano players, drummers, bass players, people like Henry Franklin, Teddy Edwards, Oscar Brashear, Ndugu Chancellor. Musicians like that I was able to see up close from the time I was like 5, 7. And I knew from the beginning, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional jazz musician. I can remember when I was in school, like in grade school, and they have like career day, stuff like that. And all the kids, you might want to be a fireman or a lawyer or what have you, professional athlete. I wanted to be a jazz drummer. And that never changed. So yeah, I mean, I've been playing drums since I was about 5, 6 years old. Got my first drum set when I was 8. And although I didn't take it seriously till I was about 13, 14, but I always had a pair of drumsticks with me. And by the time I got to high school, I got serious about playing drums because I entered the marching band, drum line. And I was the worst drummer in the school. So uh, my ego was sort of hurt, and that's when I got serious that, okay, it's time for me to seriously practice and start dealing with technique. And I was told that I need to get my technique together. So that's when I was like 15 years old. I got serious about practicing, and I also got serious about record collecting. So I started collecting a lot of jazz records when I was 14, 15. And again, being that my father was a jazz musician, I was able to see a lot of jazz concerts when I was a teenager. And although I wasn't yet qualified, my father would let me sit in with him, on some local gigs. And that just put a stamp even more so on the fact that this is what I'm going to do, even though I was pretty sad at the time. It put a stamp on that, sink or swim, I'm going to be a jazz drummer. That's what I want to do for a living. And fast forward a little bit, after high school, I went to Cal Arts Institute. I got a scholarship, and I started studying with Tootie E, who was actually a big influence on me. And then also, I had the pleasure of meeting Gilbert Castellanos at Cal Arts, and we became good friends. We were both like-minded. And I met a few other musicians there too, Mark Shelby, bass player. And we put together a group called Black Note, and we were all mentored by another famous jazz drummer, one of my favorite, named Billy Higgins.
Yep.
And that really just changed my life. My life was already going in the direction that I wanted it to, but really being mentored by Billy Higgins, for me, it really put what I wanted to do in like fourth gear. And to the point where eventually I dropped out of school. Gilbert and I, with Black Note, we got a record contract with Sony Records at the time. And I took a semester off, and I started working with a lot of the musicians around LA, like Billy Childs, James Newton, Oscar Bashir, Teddy Edwards. And for me, I thought that was it. Like, we got a record contract. I'm working locally with all the musicians, so I'll take a semester off. And that turned into 2 semesters. And looking back on it, it's been 25 years plus, but things worked out fine. Anyway, this was the early 90s, and it was a good period for me, and a good period for me to be around Gilbert and a lot of other young musicians. We were trying to play straight ahead jazz at that time, and we ended up recording for Sony, and we made a record. Jungle Music was the title, and we actually got to go on tour and open for Wynton Marsalis, summer of '93 or '94. Mm-hmm. But these were things that were stepping stones for me. That was like, wow, I'm going to go backwards for a second. When I was like 8 or 9, I felt if I could just make a living playing local gigs around LA, that I made it. Like, that was the epitome of like, okay, if I can play all the clubs that's in LA, I've made it big time. So anyway, fast forward, I realized, well, that's damn near impossible, or you'd be hard pressed, to do that. But anyway, to be on tour opening for Wynton Marsalis, it was a huge thing to have a record deal And yeah, I mean, that was a big deal for us, a big deal for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And, I mean, after that, we got dropped from Sony, I should say. We got dropped, and then we got another record deal.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? With Impulse. And oh my goodness, I'm spacing out for a second. Tommy LaPuma signed us to Impulse, and Black Note, we did a record, Nothing But the Swing. And that was a great record, and it was a further development in the group's development. And for me personally, this was like 1994, 95. I was starting to think about moving to New York. A lot of older musicians had already started telling me that, you might want to seriously consider moving to New York, because New York was, and still is, it's the jazz mecca of the world. Okay, you can make it playing jazz in New York. You can make it anywhere. If people know who you are in New York as a jazz musician, they know who you are all over the world. So that was in the back of my mind, and eventually, Black Note, we lost our second record deal, and Gilbert, I believe you moved down to San Diego.
I moved to San Diego. Yeah.
You moved to San Diego, and I moved to New York. And I had a few friends, like our alto player, James Mahone. He moved to New York.
Danton
moved to New York, bass player. So yeah, I had a few friends who moved a few months before I did. But again, it was another stepping stone. I was 28 at the time. I moved to New York, and I had already secured the gig with Arturo Sandoval at the time. So I didn't move to New York looking for a gig, as a lot of musicians might do. You go to New York and then you look for a gig. You're trying to make it. I had a gig already. So the first week I moved to New York, wait a minute. The first week I moved to New York, I was playing at the Blue Note with Arturo Sandoval. That was my first.
Wow.
That was my first gig, first week, and actually I was roommates with Teodros at the time. So another mutual friend of Gilbert and I, a great saxophone player, and so just I started hustling and playing in New York. And shortly after, I started playing with Roy Hargrove, which really, again, I got to go backwards. Roy Hargrove, that was the gig that when Black Note were together, we were all in LA playing with Black Note. Whenever Roy Hargrove would come to town, we were always there, and that was the gig that we thought about, wow, it'd be great to play with Roy Hargrove. So shortly after,
and then you got.
I'm sorry.
No, I said, and then you got the gig.
Yeah, shortly after moving to New York, I got the gig with Roy, and yet another stepping stone,
And what records are you on with Roy?
I'm on. I'm on his string record, Moment to Moment, and also Nothing Serious.
I love that record.
Nothing Serious, yeah, good record. And also I'm on his RH Factor record, Hard Groove. So I played with Roy for maybe 8 years. That's that was heavy.
One of the greatest musicians, period, ever to live.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And so yeah, I mean, it's funny looking back on it because when I first started playing with Roy and I had moved to New York, my original plan was to, you know, all right, I'll just play with Roy for a few years. If I'm lucky, I'll get on a few records and then I'll move back to LA. Like I've made it. Like I can go back home. And it's been 23 years. I'm still in New York. So, um, but
Are you still thinking about coming back to the West Coast, or is New
I'm still
York
thinking about it. Still thinking
your
about
home?
it. I say that every year. But I am thinking about it. I mean, living wise, I miss LA. Plus I still have family
Yeah.
on the West Coast. But yeah, I miss LA a lot. I mean, I miss the musicians. I miss you guys. So, but New York, um, there's so much going on. I mean, just for example, like in a given city, be it LA or Chicago, Detroit, what one city might have 2 or 3 clubs, like two major jazz clubs, maybe 3. That's it. New York has like 15.
Yeah.
I mean, Birdland, Blue Note, Smoke, Dizzy's, Jazz Standard, Small. I mean, you could just go down the list. Um, there's always there's so much to get into. Um, but that being said, I miss LA. Who knows? I might end up back on the West Coast sooner than later.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Hey, can you talk a
So,
little bit about because you work with one of my favorite musicians of all time, and I mean I'm still even learning from his music. But can you talk a little bit about your time with Horace Silver?
Horace, man, I skipped over that. Um, yeah, Horace Silver, one of my all-time favorite. Um, well, I'll tell you this. I don't know if you knew this. I auditioned for Horace before I moved to New York.
Oh, I
We,
didn't.
we were still we were still in Black Note.
Wow.
But and he hired Phil View. Remember Phil View?
Yeah.
Phil was in his band.
Wow.
So I auditioned and I just knew I was going to get the gig, and I didn't get it. So that's cool. Um,
So
but
you
anyway,
when you were in New York.
yeah, I moved to New York. This was like a year and a half later. He called me up. I had just moved to New York, and Horace calls me, and he wanted me to come back to LA and audition again. And I humbly told Horace, uh, as bad as I'd love to play with him, I can't come back to LA just to audition. I'll come back to LA to play with him.
Right.
So anyway, he called me back like 2 days later, and he said he wanted me to join the band. And this was in '97. Yeah, '97. So I had been in New York for 3 months, and he wanted me in the band, but he wanted me to show up for he was auditioning bass player. So he wanted me to play drums while he auditioned bass players. So that's when I met like almost half the musicians that I know in New York. They were at that audition.
Wow.
Like Ryan Kaiser, Jimmy Green, John Weber, Leon Dorsey, like all these, they were at the audition.
Right.
So, and that actually became the band. Jimmy Green, Ryan Kaiser, and John Weber on bass. So anyway, playing with Horace, it was great. He was full of stories. He's like a walking history book. Musically, I'll say he's very particular on what he wants. And it didn't really affect me, but it affected the bass player. And I'll leave it at that. It was interesting. Like he writes everything down that he wants, and that's how he wants it. And he's really old school. Like I'll tell you a quick story. We did like a 2-week tour, and then we were going to go in the studio and record. So Horace, we were going to meet Horace in Midtown Manhattan in front of his hotel, and then we were going to drive to Philadelphia. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I just assumed that he was going to hire a driver, and we're going to have a big van, rent a van or whatever. So we get to the hotel, and Horace comes out, and he's got like this, a little Jeep, like a Cherokee, and it's a small Jeep, and you have Jimmy Green, like 6'7". You have, we were with all of our bags. It was just, and Horace is driving.
Oh.
All right, not the greatest driver, Horace. So we're packing the bags in the back of the Jeep, and so this is like the late '90s. So, everybody had a cell phone, or not a cell phone, the computer Rolodex, right? That was popular, but not Horace. Horace had the old school Rolodex, like the teachers used to have, with the cards, and you open it up. He traveled with that. So he's trying to put his bag in the back of the Jeep, and the Rolodex falls out. So all these cars in the middle of the street. So we're like helping him pick up the cards. He may have had this Rolodex for like 40 years. Anyway, that's Horace Silver, and we play all the music. Because for me, I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna play all of his hits. Sister Sadie, The Outlaw. And we play all new music that he wanted to record, which was cool. And then we played, as an encore, we played Song for My Father. But everywhere we went, the audience, people were, like yelling for him to play all these hits. So Peace, just Silver Serenade, like this.
Yes.
He wouldn't play.
Wow.
But he's a great man, great guy, and I'm glad I got to spend some time with him.
Was that the album that you were rehearsing for? Was it the Mama Suites? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
That I think it's called Jazz Has a Sense of Humor.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That was the name of the record, the CD. And you know what? I'll tell you something else about Horace. We were rehearsing. So we rehearsed. Matter of fact, Tommy LaPuma, who signed us to Black Note, he produced Horace's record. So we actually rehearsed in the studio where we recorded. And so we're going over the songs. And we knew the music, so after a couple of times, we're like, why are we still playing? Like, why are we playing through it? And Horace was taking these long solos. But this is during the rehearsal. This was, and I didn't realize it at the time, but this was his way of like getting his chops together for tomorrow, for the next day, when we were going to record. Like he was like solo for like 15 minutes during the rehearsal. And we're like, let's just run the melody down and get the arrangement. But that was his way of, because at that stage of his life, he wasn't playing a lot.
Right.
And that was his way of getting his chops together. And he sounds great. Sounds great on that record.
It sure does. It sure does. One of the things that I really admire about you, Willie, and maybe you can talk to our students about this, is how you have become this unbelievable entrepreneur. I mean, you're not only a great drummer, incredible drummer, you're like one of the top drummers in the world, and my favorite drummer to play with. But I mean, the fact that you, in a way, took your playing to another level by writing music. You write original compositions. You have your business together, and that's one thing that I want to hear the students hear from you. They should hear the fact that you have a very successful independent record label, WJ3 Records, and I mean, the fact that you have that together and you're still juggling your musical career and playing and touring. Okay. I think that's something that they should really pay attention to.
All right, yeah, I appreciate that, Gilbert. And you know what? To address all of that, I'm gonna have to go backwards again and go back to when we were in Black Note. Because Black Note's first record, 43rd and Deckman, was produced. Well, we actually recorded it on Billy Higgins' label. So Billy Higgins had a performing arts place called the World Stage, which still exists actually in Leimert Park in LA. And he also had an independent label, World Stage Records. And he was always constantly talking about how important it is to have control of your music. So again, it was in the back of my head, oh, okay, control your music, And then the guy who produced the record, oh God, his name slips me. Dennis Sullivan.
Oh yeah.
Dennis Sullivan.
Yeah, that's right.
His name was Dennis Sullivan. I called him the street businessman. He was also always telling me how important it is to own your own music and own your own business. So anyway, fast forward a little bit. When Black Note, when we did jungle music, everybody wrote music on the record except me, Right, yeah. So for me, I kind of felt kind of left out. So I was like, if we ever do it, I told myself, if we ever do another record, I want to be involved in the creative process. So that was the beginning of my trying to write, because to this day, I don't really consider myself, like a songwriter like you, or Marcus, But that was the beginning. I was like, okay, if I can hear a melody, I can create one. That's, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was telling myself at that time. And as time went on, I moved to New York, and I tried to get a record deal with some of the labels in New York, small labels and major labels, and nobody was trying to record me or trying to sign me. And it was funny because during that time, I was doing a lot of sessions as a sideman. So, I mean, I was already doing demo tapes at that time. So I just figured, well, you know what? Instead of doing a demo, I'll just save up some money and do a recording, see what happens. You know, and I mean, at that time, I had no idea that I would be doing it for 20 years or that I would have, you know, 20 CDs under my belt as a record label. It was just like, well, let me try to do one project and see what happens, you know. And one project turned into two. And after like my fifth project, I started recording other people like Eric Reed, Cyrus Chestnut, Justin Robinson. And mind you, these are people who are like more famous than, like bigger than me, you know. But these are also musicians that I worked with all the time at that time. So by the time that started happening, I mean, technology had developed also to where it became easier to do your own project, you know. So, and especially now with social media, I mean, like I wouldn't even want to sign with a label right now. Like why? You know, unless they're gonna put you on the road for tour support, which is not gonna happen. That would be the only way. I mean, right now, the type of music I like to play, you know, I'm good at recording myself, putting it out. I've developed enough of a fan base to where it pays for itself. I'm not saying that I'm making all this money or anything like that, but it pays for itself. And like I said, I know, especially with the smaller labels, not saying any names, but with the smaller labels, I know what they pay to these musicians. So, you know, I'm like, wait a minute, I could do that. I can afford to do that. I can afford to pay the musicians that amount of money, you know. And at this point, it seems the only way to go. You know.
I'm going to segue into something else from that. Can you talk a little bit about, and I'm sure a lot of our students will be familiar with Kendrick Lamar.
Yes.
And that's what I really, why I have so much respect for you, because there was an incident that happened in 2014 where one of the original songs was used by Kendrick Lamar for as a sample.
Yeah.
And you had to go to court, and you had to like, you guys, if I'm not mistaken, you guys, both you and Eric Reed, because you were co-writers, is that right?
No, Eric wrote the song.
Okay.
But I own the master.
Right.
I'm the owner of the sound recording. And I have to be real specific on how I state this. So the issue, it wasn't so much as Kendrick. It was more so the producer who produced the beat. And didn't get permission. Okay. But Eric wrote the song, and I own, because it was on the song was on my record, on my CD, and I own it. So, and that just goes back to number one, because you know, a few years before that, it's like, well, why would you spend your own money to to record yourself. Like, why do that? Well, this is why. Because you never know. Like, if, let's say, for example, if if I had done that particular record for some other label, and the exact same thing happened where some producer sampled the record, he gets that money, or the owner of the label gets that money, not me.
Right.
Okay. I mean, Eric still gets his as writer, but me as the artist, I would get nothing. The label would get it. But since I am the label and the artist, I get the money, you know. So, yeah, I mean, the producer sampled the track without getting permission. And I'm glad he did. You know, I mean, when that whole thing happened, it just it just confirmed and validated my whole philosophy about, you know what, it's all about investing in yourself and putting out your own music and owning it, because you never know.
Yeah.
Like when I started, I wasn't thinking about, oh, somebody might sample this. No, that was the farthest thing from my mind. But years later, this situation happened, and yeah, I mean, um, and I'll say this: the funny thing about it, look, when I first, are you still there? Okay, okay. When this first came about, when I first was aware of it, I mean, I'm a jazz musician, so I'm like, look, let's just make it right, whatever, cool. And the party that we were trying to reach out to, and it wasn't Kendrick. It wasn't Kendrick. But the party we were trying to reach out to in regards to, let's make the situation right, they would just ignore us.
Wow.
Like, and then eventually they did respond, and I mean, it was like very disrespectful, on like some charity type stuff. Like they're like, oh, they figured like we're jazz musicians, we must be starving. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I told my attorney, I'm like, hey, I'm working all the time. I don't care if it takes forever. Takes a few years, cool. And but eventually it all settled. Like it never even made it to court. Like they didn't want to do that.
They just settled outside of court.
Of course, because I mean they would have lost. So, I mean, like it was a no-brainer.
It was very obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, it was too obvious. So
the tune was "The Thorn," right?
it was "The Thorn," written by Eric Reed.
Yeah.
And they sped it up. That was it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying earlier. The fact that you are on top of your business, you copyright your music, publishing, all that. That's important for any musician, not just a young musician, but any musician to really figure out at a young age how to protect your music.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take credit, like for everything. I mean, I've been very blessed to have people, to be around people who've been in my ear about things that I should do in the industry, in addition to playing drums. Like, I mean, I've also been blessed, a lot of the older musicians who've told me horror stories about older musicians who got ripped off because they didn't have their business together, or they were just naive about a certain situation. So, I mean, I've been pretty fortunate to be able to act on that information. You had people like Billy Higgins, Billy Child, different people, John Clayton, um, James Newton. I mean, like tons of. I mean, you've been around the same people. Like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, we've been very fortunate. Like that's. Let me say this. That's one thing that I kind of miss. Not kind of. I miss about LA and the LA jazz scene. At least during that time in the '90s. All the older musicians that we knew, worked with, and were around, it was sort of like a family.
Yeah.
Like they looked after, Teddy Edwards, you bass player,
Henry Franklin.
Henry Franklin, but also another guy played with Coltrane.
Oh,
He was Art Davis.
Davis.
Art Davis. So, yeah, I mean, I've been blessed to have these musicians take me under their wing and give me the opportunity to play with them, and also give me tons of advice.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, we have some questions here from our students.
Okay.
Let me read one off to you here. This is from one of our students, Ian Cunningham, who's an incredible young pianist. He wants to know, what was it like working on the soundtrack to Motherless Brooklyn?
Oh wow. Yeah, okay, so that session was with Wynton Marsalis, and Ted Nash was also saxophone, and great young piano player in New York, Isaiah Thompson, and Phil Norris on bass. So Wynton wrote the music for the movie, Ed Norton movie, and so the movie is like takes place in the 1960s, like a detective type movie, and basically I just went into the studio and went and talked down the chart, talked down the music, and we played it. We did a couple of takes of each tune, and it was beautiful, it was incredible. I think I played on half of it, and Joe Farnsworth is on some of it also. But it was a great experience.
Were you looking at a screen when you were recording the music, or is it just
No. Now you know what? I do remember, because after Ed Norton was there, the actor, he was in the studio. So I do remember at a certain point, he came into like the recording booth where we were all, and he was like explaining one of the scenes to us.
Okay.
But no, I never saw a screen or anything. But you know what? I think in the engineer booth, where the recording engineers, they may have had a TV in there where the movie was playing.
Right.
But the musicians, we never saw a screen.
Okay. Here, we'll go to another question. Hope that answers Ian's question. This is from Khalil Childs. Hello, Mr. Jones. This is Khalil, an alto saxophone player in Young Lions Jazz Conservatory. Can you tell us one of your favorite stories of playing with Roy Hargrove?
Oh man, there's so many. Let's see. All right, I'll tell you one. Here's one. So the first time I played with Roy was in April '97. It was at Catalina's, the old Catalina's. So I still lived in LA at the time. April '97, I did a week. And I think that was sort of like my audition, right? So of course I'm wondering, so how did I do? Did I get the gig? Nobody says anything. Roy doesn't say anything. His manager. So, uh, so like maybe a week, 2 weeks later, they asked me to go to Germany for one gig. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I fly from LA to Germany, and I do the gig. So I sort of, at some point, I asked the manager, like, man, say, what do you think? You know, and he's like, yeah, things are working out. You know, he was very, very vague in his answer. You know, and so, and at the same time, I'm still playing with Arturo Sandoval.
Oh,
So I'm like, I'm not gonna quit Arturo. This is what I'm saying to myself. I'm not gonna quit Arturo until I know I'm in Roy's band. So anyway, I moved to New York, and so Roy's manager keeps calling me, but they never tell me I'm in the band. You know. So then finally, like maybe 6 months after I'm in New York, I go to a jam session in the East Village, and Roy's there. So keep in mind, the first 6 months, Roy has said maybe a couple of words to me, you know, because he doesn't talk that much in general, outside of music. But that night at the jam session, you know, we're having a drink, and all of a sudden he's just like, hey man, like he basically gives me his itinerary for the next 6 months.
wow.
You know, like we're going here, we're going there. So that was his way of telling me, you know, or that my interpretation was I'm in the band
Yeah.
for good. And then I quit Arturo the next day. You know,
You got the golden seal of approval.
golden seal of approval. Yeah.
That's great. Wow.
So
Amazing.
but there's so many funny stories with Roy. You know, one time I played a gig with his RH Factor group, and we were on the bandstand for 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours.
Wow.
It was like, and it was 2 drummers. So at one point I stopped playing, you know. I mean, you know, but yeah, it's tons of stories.
Wow. Okay, well, hopefully that answers that question. We have a question from one of our instructors, Charlie Arbelias, who also played on his record years ago, alto saxophone player from San Diego. He wants to know, can you please talk about what playing jazz music means to you, especially in times like these?
Okay, repeat that one more time. Sorry.
Okay, can you please talk about what playing jazz music means to you, especially in times like these?
Okay. So I'm going to assume that he means like everything that's going on with the pandemic, with George Floyd.
Yeah.
Like, okay. I mean, for me, see how can I answer? For me, it's like it's always been. Okay, Gilbert, like you're old enough, you know, because we went to school together. Mm-hmm. It's the same way for me. Is how when the Rodney King,
right, LA riots,
happened, and because I mean I had never seen anything like that at that time.
Jazz, etc.
Jazz, etc. burnt up, you know, as a result of the LA riots. But anyway, but to answer Charlie's question, to play this music, you know, like I mean, we're playing Black music. This is what I do. This is what I am. Okay. This is what my father raised me to do. It's what he raised me to be, for better or for worse, in the best of times, the worst of times. Uh, you know, for me, the best way, your instrument, that's how you express yourself. How you express yourself on trumpet, how I express myself on drums, how Charlie expressed himself on saxophone. So, I mean, times like this, it's even more important that I'm able to be blessed, that I can express myself on my instrument, uh, you know, uh, and whatever I'm feeling about what's going on, I can express it through my instrument. Like maybe I can't verbalize it, I can get it out through my instrument, or maybe I could get it out through songwriting. You know, um, but it's everything. I mean, and that goes. I think it's important for me to say that goes for when everything is supposedly going good, and when everything is messed up, when there's injustices.
Right.
But I mean, hey, I'm 51 years old, so I've seen a lot of injustice. I've seen a lot of good. You know, but the one constant is that I'm blessed to express myself. Sometimes that expression might be some anger, and maybe it's happiness, maybe whatever, but it's everything. That's to express yourself, to communicate to other people how you feel about the world and what's going on in the world as a musician. I mean, we're not the first to do that. We're not the first to be blessed to do that. That's what Coltrane did. That's what Miles Davis did. That's what Louis Armstrong did. That's what Dizzy Gillespie did. And we won't be the last. So to answer this question, it's everything. I'm very blessed that I'm able to do it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer. Let me see here. We have a couple of questions from Facebook. Here's one. What are some of your favorite bass players on the scene to play with?
Oh, there's a lot of, but I'll name some off the top. Gerald Cannon. We played together for years with Roy Hargrove Quintet. He's one of my favorite bass players to play with. Peter Washington, Desron Douglas. There's shoot. Who else? Ben Williams. Ben Williams, great bass player. There's a great young bass player in New York, Alex Claffey. Great young bass player. I like playing with him. Rodney Whitaker, of course. There's a lot of them.
Those are all the cats in New York. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? West Coast. Let me throw Tony Dumas. Tony Dumas.
The unsung hero.
Nobody talks about that. One of my all-time favorites. John Clayton. My goodness.
Yep.
One of my all-time favorites. Especially for playing the ballad. Oh my God. But yeah, there are tons of bass. Those are the ones off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm sure I left off a lot of people.
Well, here's another one. Who were some of your major influences growing up?
Influences growing up. Okay. Besides my dad, Henry Franklin. Henry Franklin was a huge influence. Ndugu Chancellor, only because he was one of the first drummers I saw play. Like I saw in person.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid. My high school band teacher, David Sears. He was a huge, and still is, a huge influence on me as a musician. Who else? Billy Childs, Kay Akagi, James Newton.
Of course, yeah.
Horace Silver. I mean, like these are the musicians I was around when I was developing and growing up.
Right.
So, like, you know, James Newton was my teacher at Cal Arts, and I was in his ensemble class. So then he started calling for gigs. Kay Akagi was his piano player. So then Kay Akagi started calling, you know.
Right.
Barbara Morrison. I mean, again, I'm leaving people. I'm forgetting people. But on the top of my head, those are people who influenced me early on. John Clayton, Jeff Clayton.
Yeah. I'm curious to see if any of our students have any drum-related questions for you. I know we have a question here asking, what kind of things are you working on these days to improve your playing?
I still work on the basics. I still work on rudiments. I still work on Wilcoxon. You know, almost every day. I should do every day. Almost every day. I'm still, you know, I practice all my rudiments. And I also still try to make music by myself. Like sitting down to the drums and just play. You know, like I saw Billy Higgins do that. Billy used to do that. Billy would be at the world stage, like at midnight, playing drums in the dark, like it was a gig.
Wow.
He wasn't working on any particular phrase. He was just playing time. Then all of a sudden he starts soloing. I try to do that. Not sure how successful I am at it, but that's what I work on to this day. I try to make a little music for myself, keep my musicality up to par, and just still practice the rudiments.
Okay. Let me see here. We have one more question, and then we'll move on here. What was the scariest audition you ever had? How did you manage your nerves? That's from Rick McCurdy. I don't know if you know Rick McCurdy.
No, I know Roy McCurdy.
Yeah.
You said Rick McCurdy?
Rick McCurdy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know what? I've never really had an audition. My first week with Roy was unofficially an audition, I guess you could say, but it was a gig. Like I've never really auditioned, at least that I can think of. Well, yeah, I can't really say an audition where it was scary. Now, well, I could say this. I've been in a situation where it was pretty tense. You know, like I was in a rehearsal with the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra, and there was a lot of reading involved. And in so many different sections of music that it was pretty tense for me. You know, I wouldn't use the word scary, but it was tense. That's the closest I can imagine.
All right. What advice would you give to any musician that's thinking about moving to New York to become, obviously, a professional musician and to get involved in the scene? What advice would you give a young musician?
I would say number one, be sure and confident in that that's what you want to do. You know, like whether I moved to New York, I knew I was going to be a musician. I was going to be a professional musician, a jazz musician. You know, like I never planned on having something to fall back on. Like to me, that's planning for failure. You know, so I would say number one, be sure that this is what you want to do. You know, as far as moving to New York and being a musician. And then two, make sure you're honest with yourself about your level of musicianship. You know, because everybody's not. Some people, you know, think they're at a level that they're not, and then maybe they move to New York and things don't work out how they would like them to, you know. But I think if you're determined that this is what you want to do and you're confident about it, yet you're truthful about the level you're on, where you are, and then you put that energy into getting to the next level, you can make it. You can make it in New York. You can make it anywhere, actually. You know, but the first step is being determined and being honest where you are in your development, and then going from there.
That's great advice. That's great advice. I wish we had 3 more hours of this because I have a lot of questions, but I know we're almost at time. But is there anything that you want to say, Willie, to just the students or the general public that's listening today before we wrap it up?
No, I'd just like to say that, Gilbert, I really appreciate you giving me this time to speak to your students. I'm honored and blessed to be doing this. And like you were saying, times like this, it's even more important that we fill the air with positive music and positive vibes, you know, and play the music that we want to play, the way we want to play. You know.
Yeah, well said.
That's all we can do. Thank you very much.
And by the way, Willie Jones will be joining us for the summer workshop. He's going to be on faculty, so make sure that you guys register so that you can get some knowledge from Mr. Willie Jones III. And it's going to be an incredible faculty, including Marcus Printup, Helen Song, Katie Thoreau, Graham Decter, Joe Bagg, Joe Fromm, just to name a few. So make sure you do that. I also want to mention that next Saturday on June 13th, it's going to be the All Ensembles concert, and that's going to be live on Facebook at noon. So tune into that, where we're going to be showcasing all of the ensembles. And then the following day, we're going to be celebrating the 2020 graduating class, celebrating the 2020 graduating class. So that's going to be a special jazz explorations dedicated just to the seniors. They're going to be hosting it, asking, you can ask them questions, and I'm curious to see where they're going to be headed off to next year. And so it's, it's all good stuff coming up here in the next week. Thank you again, Willie, for being here. It means
Thank you.
the world to me. I love you, and I'm grateful.
Love you too, man.
Grateful for having you in my life, and a lot of people don't know this, but one of the main reasons why I'm here doing my thing is because of Willie. Willie was a huge inspiration and role model. And I'm going to share a quick little story. When we were at Cal Arts and we had just got signed to Columbia and we were doing all this stuff, I remember one time Willie invited me to have breakfast. He probably doesn't remember this, but he invited me to breakfast at school, and we're having breakfast, and he says to me, "You need to get a private teacher. You need to study with somebody." And he was absolutely right, because right after that, I started taking lessons with Clay Jenkins. I started taking lessons with Oscar Brasher, and that changed my life and put me on the path, because it was a reality check. And if it wasn't for someone to be just honest with me, I would not be here today talking to you guys and having Willie here. So thank you, Willie.
Oh, thank you. And let me tell a quick story. Right after I moved to New York, or around that time that I moved to New York, I was trying to tell Gilbert, I was like, man, you should move to New York too, man. Like you're great, young trumpet player, you should move to New York. And you never did. You went to San Diego, and a couple of years go by, and you created this whole scene in San Diego. San Diego had no jazz scene, none. And you created it. And that inspired me to tighten my game up on the business side. Because I'm like, wait a minute. What you accomplished in San Diego proved that it doesn't matter where you are. You could develop your musicianship, and you could develop a scene wherever you are. So it went both ways.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about, inspiring each other. We inspire each other
right.
to be better musicians and better people. So
That's right.
you, Willie Jones III, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you guys next Saturday on June 13th for the All Ensembles concert. And don't forget, you can show your love and support by giving us money. Go to the YLJC website, younglionsjazzconservatory.org, and show us your support, please. And until next time, keep jazz alive. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Willie.
All right now.